The Search for Crann is a debut novel written by Everly Wren. We'll firstly go through the synopsis. So the synopsis reads, all alone on her graduation day, with a linguistics degree and no job prospects, Ira wondered what she would do with her life. That is, until three strange women with magical powers show up in the parking lot and kidnap her. Now, Ira is thrust into a world she doesn't understand. Who are the Ritcheries? Why does her blood make magic symbols work? Why are her three new friends saying they're trapped in this world with no way back to Crann? And who are those shadow beings chasing after them? Quite a few questions in that synopsis. You will notice if you read this book that is quite a theme. The asking of questions. Whether those questions actually get answered is something I suppose we'll discuss. Well, I'll go through the triggers, and as you can probably tell, one of the triggers is kidnapping. The kidnapping of an adult, but also the kidnapping of children. The author does also mention that there are moments of blood and mild violence, and I'd also add on there the assumed death of a child. I don't think anybody actually dies in this book, but it is there is a scene in there where they convince a mother that their child has died. Now, this review will be filled with my own opinions, some of which you may disagree with, and look, if I'm being honest with myself, in a couple of weeks, hours, minutes, I'm probably going to disagree with. I'm a very inconsistent person, you know. The more you know, the more you realise you don't know. I'm aware I'm probably going to misinterpret something, or I may miss an explanation and go off on some tangent that could have been easily explained if, you know, I read on. But, you know, I'm just some crazy woman on the internet. With all that said, what I really mean is you are welcome to watch or welcome to skip. I'm not your correctional officer. I can't tell you what to do. I think I'll sort of start this review with an explanation of the lore. Now, I'm not too sure if I really understand it fully. I don't even think the characters do. Some of the answers to Ira's questions are, don't know, babe. So, you know, I'll try my best. Made a whole Word document just so I could keep track of all the characters and all the supernatural stuff raised. Because I was confused. Like, I think this is all kind of like Welsh mythology, or I don't know what the word is, Welsh fantasy stuff. So yeah, I'd spent my second read through sort of compiling everything into a little table so I could sort of understand what everything meant. So Earth, obviously we all know what Earth is, so that's the dimension in which Ira, our main character, lives. Then we've got Galia. That's a kingdom in another dimension which is called Tullamore, and that's where the city of Crann resides, the elusive place which the girls are trying to get to, and obviously the title of the book. Everywhere there are these magical beings, and they're called Dunes, and each of them will hold one of 19 magical powers. I think we learn about 15 of these in the book, so I'm not sure what the other 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So the three girls that were sent to bring Ira back to Crann, their names are Ness, Ty and Ez, and they are a part of something called the 27, which is a group that I think sort of protect the city or kind of go out on missions. I'm not really sure. When asked, you know, the girls don't really have an answer either, even though they've gone to school and training, and it is written in the book that Ty kind of knows about the older 27 members, so why the knowledge of what they do never really came up during that research doesn't really make sense to me, but, you know, they're still relatively new to the position as well, so, you know, can't blame them. It's not like they've been training their whole life for this. Nez, she is something called a prim, which is like, I think, the leader of the 27, and then Ty and Ez are like second and third in command, respectively. So the 27 is split into three groups, which the three girls command, and thus making them so Nez is like the leader of the entire 27, but then they're each also a leader of their own group, so that also those leaders are called Sen. So Nez is a prim, but also a sen, and Tai and Ez are both sen. Everybody in the 27 are numbered from 1 to 27. So Nez being Prim, she's number 1, and Ira ends up being 27. She's the 27th member of the 27. And as a collective, they are also called the Ritteries. So there you go. One question answered from the synopsis. So the 27, they sit kind of high in the government hierarchy, with a group called the 9 that sort of sits below them. The 9 are the people that look after the city. They focus on domestic issues and protection. They also man the phones and the post boxes that receive calls and mail from their safe houses that they have distributed in Earth for when the citizens of Sen go to Earth for missions. The 9 also has a Prim, and then their members, instead of being called Ritteries, they're called the Sclab. I'm not really sure how they sort of get into each one of these groups. It sort of seems it happens when someone dies, or it happens when a new re is put in. I think they sort of go through this training process, but I'm not sure how they get into the training process. If everybody gets into the training process and then the top marks, I'm not too sure. Anyway, spoilers, sort of at the end of the book, there's kind of this big ceremony for a lot of the new 27 members. Like, they haven't had a war or something happened. Like, I don't recall them initiating a new re. So, like, where did all the old members go? Like, what happened? Anyway, above the 27s are the 3 re's. So the first re is in charge of the 3 re's. The second is in charge of the 9, and the third re is in charge of the 27. So you've sort of got the Prim, which is the leader of the 27, but then the re is also in charge. Like, yeah, there's a hierarchy. Every 3 years, the re's are voted on, and every time there is a new second or third re, that's when they create a new 9 or 27, and the 9 or the 27 will consist of all of one gender, and that gender will correlate to the re that's been put in. So if the re of the 9 is a man, then all of the 9 is going to be a man. At this stage, the re of the 9 is a man, so all of the 9 are men, and the re of the 27 is a woman, so that's why they're all women. Sort of very slightly above, but also kind of equal to the re's, is something called the max. There are 12 of them. They're each in charge of different divisions. I don't really know what these divisions are. I don't know if they're like divisions of Crann, like parts of the city, or if there are other groups. Like, we've got the 9 and the 27. You know, do we have a 36, a 4? They're just leaders of divisions. And then at the top is a person called the Sabdan, who is, I'm assuming, the king, since they call Galaya a kingdom. But then they also say they have a government, so maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. I'm trying. To be a Sabdan, you have to have been a re previously, and to become a re, you know, you have to be part of the 9 or the 27, so, you know, you have to work your way up to that role. No Nepo babies here, my friend. Except it does turn out that Nez, the current Prim of the 27, is Re's adopted daughter, so... Alright, like I mentioned earlier, there are 19 powers a person could have, a magical person. What did I call them? I've already forgotten. A June could have 19 powers. There are a lot of, I'm assuming, Welsh words here, or some sort of language. I do apologise. I'm going to mispronounce a lot of this stuff. Ira, our main character, so she has the power of the Tokias, which means she can draw symbols on people. And these symbols are called toks. So she uses a mixture of ash and blood, and then some wooden stake to draw it on the people to give them the abilities. She isn't able to draw the symbols on herself, but she can get the effect of the symbols if she draws it on clothes and then wears them. How? I'm not really sure. They do try to explain it, but it really doesn't make sense to me. It's fine. It works. It seems a bit overpowered, but it's fine. Anyway, the mixture is unique to her, so another Tokias can't use her mixture. And it also sort of dries up after a while, so she needs to keep replenishing it with her blood. Now, that's another thing I had some questions about. Like, what happens to the ash? Like, how does it dry up? Does the blood just disappear magically, turning it back into dry ash? Does the blood congeal and make clumps in the ash? Does the ash have anti-clotting abilities and it remains a mixture, but then you have to keep adding more until it becomes like a really loose mixture? I don't know, because they never really talk about needing to add more ash. The Tokias are rare because they were killed off due to a tyrannical Ree who had a grudge because their son ran off with one, instead of doing his duty. How a person becomes a Tokias, they say, is either from bloodlines, or the second way is when a baby is born the exact time as the solar eclipse, so that the first light that hits them is from the sun as it comes out from behind the moon. And that's how Ira became one. They didn't really explain how the others got their powers, especially since we find out Ty ran away from an orphanage on Earth. So, are we just assuming her parents were magical, or did she got the power of fire or something? Was the first light that touched her a candle flame or something? I don't know. I don't know. And we also later meet Owen, who is also someone who was born on Earth to a human mother, well, presuming human. They never say that she's magical. He ends up having water abilities. So, where does that come from? Refracting water light? I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I also don't really understand how or where the Tok gets its power from, and sort of how long it lasts and what determines that. I mean, of course the Tok gets the power from the blood, but like how much? Like in the book, Ira actually asks how long each Tok lasts, and they say it just sort of depends on the Tok. And it should be in one of her books. And, we sort of find out that the flying Tok lasts 6 hours. And they also put like a tracking Tok on someone later on. But like, how long does that last and what sustains it? What determines how long each Tok lasts? How long does the Tok remain active? And, what's sustaining it? Does it feed on the person the Tok is on? Or does it feed on the person that drew it? Or neither? Ira sort of just seems to be drained after drawing Toks because she's lost blood, not that she's expended a lot of magic. And what are the others' powers limitation? What feeds the magic, and what are the strength levels? Can people get stronger with their magic, or does everybody just start at the same ability and remain that way? I just felt like there was a lot of magic questions I had that I felt weren't really answered, and like it's all very interesting, don't get me wrong, but just had a lot of questions. Speaking of other abilities, I'll let you know what the other powers are. So the 4 elemental powers are the most common, those being Driss, they're the earthbenders, Seed, the airbenders, Sruth, the waterbenders, and Luith, the firebenders. The other powers include the Torkdus, so they're the shapeshifters, the Am, so they can control time and energy, the Arjets, they have mind control, the Menmays, they can alter somebody's memory, the Eyeless, they can swap bodies, the Adkis, they can see through time and space, Athigs, it mainly just sort of says in the book they're called the Travellers, so I'm assuming teleportation. I'm not sure. They just really run really fast. The which I'm assuming they can create force fields. Not too sure. The Grainma, I think they can create lightning. And the Fuel, so they can replenish and remove blood from a person. Ness, we find out, is an Am. So she's the one that can control time and energy. And then both Ty and Ez are Luiths, so the firebenders. Okay, I think I've explained a bit. Hope you got it all. There'll be a quiz at the end. I'm just kidding. I'm not making up a quiz. I barely have the will to live. So, Ira. She's a 24-year-old and we first meet her at her graduation. She's just finished her thesis, I'm assuming, in ancient linguistics at a university in America. and it's kind of mourning the fact that no one she knows or loves is here to appreciate the moment. Aww. I kind of got the vibe that her parents didn't love her and that she's estranged, but they're not. I also kind of thought it was a high school graduation because there's someone sort of giving a speech, and Ira thinks that this ceremony is more for the parents, which doesn't really make sense for a college graduation ceremony for adults who just graduated from a PhD program or a master's. I'm not sure. She sort of talks about how she did a thesis on this language, so I'm assuming it's a PhD. She's getting ready to leave when she bumps into a strange girl. Dark brown hair reaching her tan chin, amber eyes meeting her own. You need to come with us. Us? With a blink, she takes in the other two girls before her. Both had dark skin, one taller than the other. The taller one had bright red hair grown into an afro, bright clothes matching her lopsided grin. The other was smiling too, though she didn't seem to be as sarcastic about it. Her eyes were covered by dark sunglasses, pushing back her dyed pink hair. White marks cover her body. Tattoos, Ira realizes after a moment. Okay, I don't know if you caught that, but don't ask me how sunglasses that are covering your eyes can also push your hair back. This is Nez, Ty, and Ez, respectively. Glad we got some descriptions on them because poor Ira doesn't get the same luxury. Working with a blank canvas here, she can be whoever you'd like her to be. But they kidnap the poor girl using some mind-controlling power here. You know, I thought Nez controlled energy, but she can also control minds. I suppose everything is energy, so then she's just kind of overpowered, I guess. Kind of like how Ira is. I don't really understand what the limitations to the powers are. I will start spiraling if I think about this too long. They're taking Ira back to Crann, and to do that they have to go to the pedestal and use something called a clock to travel back to their world. We sort of find out on the little car trip there's only one clock per country, so it's easier to keep track of it, you know, if it was to go missing. So they use the car ride to kind of explain some things. Ira's taking all of this really well, mind you, and she kind of misunderstands them and thinks that they need her to be like a translator because they sort of start talking about that linguistic language that she did her thesis on. They reveal that she is actually what they call a Takaias and has magical abilities. You know, the magical abilities that, you know, you can draw on people and give them powers. On the way to the pedestal, they kind of run into a car accident, which allows Ira to put her abilities into practice. So we get a little bit of a scene seeing what she can do. I just have to draw on them and they'll heal, Ira asks, uncertain. That doesn't seem... I don't really care what it seems like. We only have a little bit of time before the police get here. We need to be out of here by then. Draw. The last word Nez speaks is punctured by a scream as one of the people wakes up. Ira is by her side in an instant, dipping the stake back into the pouch and drawing the symbol for health on the woman's forehead, quickly followed by sleep. Once she's started, it only takes a matter of minutes before all 6 people are lying in the dirt next to the highway. Their pulses aren't strong, but they're still breathing. Congratulations, Ez says. You're officially a Takaias. Welcome to the club. After that ordeal, they pile back into the car. Before too long, they arrive at the pedestal, which is basically just like a large boulder covered in colourful writing. And they realise that the clock that should be sitting on top of it is missing. Suddenly they're sort of surrounded by these figures, which later reveal themselves to be called the Adder. These guys are like servants to some overarching evil that steals the Crann people and turns them into these figures with black robes in order to do their bidding. They've stolen the clock to not allow them to return with the Takaias because she's like really powerful, and I think that they want to kill her basically. Yeah, the less Takaias in the world, the better, because they are too powerful. They try and fight them. The girls try to fight the figures to try and get the clock back, but fail, because Ira forgot to replenish the ash with fresh blood. How silly! How did she not know what to do? So they retreat to the safe house in Carrion Cove and sort of ponder how they're going to return to Crann without the clock. Ira ends up calling her parents, I assume. She says she's going to, but It isn't written that she does. I'm only bringing this up now because later on they decide they need to buy phones because none of them have any, even though this is written into the book. And also during their drive to Crann Cove, Ty mentioned she has a phone. So I think someone just forgot they mentioned that. Nez uses a phone in the house. This one can only call Crann, so it doesn't count. To catch up, have a little powwow, and inform the people of Crann, the 9, the guys that man the phones, that, they're in trouble, but not too much trouble. They all go to bed. Next day happens, and they all go to have breakfast. You will be surprised at how often them having breakfast is written into this book. Ty sort of asks the important question of how long, they think they might be staying for. We're staying until we can solve our little problem. We can't go back until we know who took the clock. We're on our own. Well, yes, you can't really go back until you know who took the clock because you need the clock to get back. So, yeah. So they spend the morning doing some research, searching for weapons, and when night time comes, they get an unexpected knock at the door. This is where we are introduced to the people of Sugar Hill. So that's the town, I'm assuming, that Crann Cove is a part of. The townsfolk inform the girls that they knew the 4 older members of the 27 60 years ago when they were also stuck on Earth because of a war in Crann. Somebody was trying to kill the first Rehau. In return for them not revealing the older members of the 27 to the wider world and providing them resources to live, they had the group do things for them, like make it rain, grow the crops, sacrifice the lambs. And now the people of Sugar Hill want to make an agreement, much like the agreement they had made with the older 27 members. Agreement, Ez asks. Well, it's the same one I'm planning on offering the lot of you. We're not going to tell anybody asking if you're here, of course. But on top of that, we'd supply you with, supplies. All you have to do is help us out. He reaches into his pocket, pulling out a piece of paper. This here is everything we need you to do. So yeah, fun little side quest for the girls. Can't have them being bored. It's not like they had something to do. But the girls spend some time around the house, 3 days to be exact, just kind of researching, I suppose, why 3 days have passed and nothing has been done about the trying to get back to Crann, the plot of the book. We've been here for 3 days, Ty says the next morning. All I'm saying is we need to start doing something. You know what, Ty? You are absolutely right. I love how self-aware this book can be sometimes, to only then squander it. Ty is actually talking about, let's go do some side quests. It ends up that one of their side quests is actually linked to the plot, but we don't know that yet, so it just kind of feels like the story sort of stagnates. Don't get me wrong, the author does try to keep the main story going by having Ez make phone calls to all the other safe houses to see if any of the Crann citizens reside in them, and can tell them if their country's clock has been stolen. But I never really understood the point of that, nor does it actually assist them in any way. Like, why did she have to call all 200 of them? Shouldn't Crann have a system back at home that tells them when they are occupied so that they can keep tabs on the people that they sent out? Why doesn't she just ask the 9 to let her know which ones are occupied and then just call them? Only a few end up being occupied, so she just wastes days doing this. 100% could be missing something, but I just don't understand what the point of that was. They also plan to start going down the list. And the first thing on it is to fix the old tree that is dying. And that's the first thing on the list. So it must be pretty important. The others must be a waste of time. Do you want to know what the second thing on the list is? Help them find four missing children. Why is a dying tree being prioritized over missing children? Okay. So they are discussing how to fix the tree, and they sort of have this little interaction. How are we going to fix the tree again? No, we, Ty says. You. Nez says you found a talk for it. But the tree isn't a person. Or they don't have to go on a person, do they? But then, like, if someone were to put, say, strength on a shirt, does that mean the shirt would be super strong? Or would whatever was wearing the shirt? And, like, if you put the growth talk on a tree like we are, does that mean that the tree will grow more? Or just a specific piece of bark? And then in the same vein, does that mean the fruit will make people grow more? If you put one on a pregnant lady, would the child get the same effect? Do you want the logical answer or the factual answer? Nez asks. I didn't ask that question. That is a line written in the book. But also, what? Does that not mean the same thing? Logically, it affects the whole structure of whatever you draw in it. Factually, we don't know. Gonna be honest, I didn't understand any of what you just said to me. Later on in the book, Ira ends up drawing a talk on some bandages because she's sort of hurt her ankle. And it was sort of looking at the definition that's provided, the talk affects the whole structure of whatever you draw it on. Does that mean that the bandages are a part of her? Like, is she sort of going for the fact that, if I put on a shirt and then I draw the talk on the shirt, it affects the shirt, the person, everything, But then I also don't really understand that either because, so the talk works on the shirt because I am wearing the shirt, so the shirt is touching me. But then, I'm also touching the ground, and the ground is touching everything else that is on the ground. Am I taking this too far? I feel like I'm starting to sound like I have the literacy level of a 5th grader. We'll just move on from that. So they fix the tree, woohoo! And they go out to eat and meet some of the other residents of Sugar Hill. We meet some dude called Luke and his wife Cindy. This is relevant. I will make a point of this in a minute. Sandy, Joe and Billy, who thank her for saving the tree. They also get some information about the missing girls. Mind you, while they are about to walk out the door. Remember, guys, if it was important, it would have been at the top of the list. If you need any information about Charlotte or any of the other girls, please don't hesitate to call. I know you have a long list, but if you could try and find our girls. Nez puts a hand on his shoulder. Oh, sorry, I was speaking that. I thought that was the wife talking. We'll do everything we can. That's the next thing on the list. How many girls are missing? Ty asks. 4 of last week. Ours, Chubby Charlie, was the first. Now, hold on. Chubby Charlie? I just want to tell you, we are talking about a girl of 12 years. Not a toddler. Poor girl. Then it was Mike's little ducky, Debbie, a few weeks ago. Then John's Olivia. The last one, last week, was Luke's Susan. He's taken it really hard. His wife died in an accident a few years back. She what? Excuse me? Do these girls now have the gift of clairvoyance? Who the heck were they just talking to a few minutes ago in the diner? Poor Cindy. So they leave the diner and, plan to call the sheriff later. As they're driving, Nez kind of has like a little power mishap. She starts accidentally phasing through stuff because she doesn't have great control over her energy power. And to distract her, Ty sort of suggests that they talk about Crann. I want to emphasize, she says, let's talk about Crann. So they start talking about people's abilities and, what the difference are. And that's it. They don't even go through all the abilities. And they don't even touch on Crann. So I don't know. I just feel like I'm never going to understand this world. Next day, guess what we're doing? Having breakfast. Yeah, boy. Best meal of the day. Eggs, bacon, toast. What more could you want? A mother's love. After breakfast, Nez stands and begins to pace. We need a plan. How about we call the sheriff? Ira asks. He probably has some leads. Wait, did we not already agree to do that last night? 2 problems with that idea, Ez says. First, we don't have any phones. The second problem was that they only have 1 car, but that's not really a problem. Anyway, they get Ez to call all the safe houses. I don't need to talk about that again. You already know how I feel about that. Nez goes and buys some new phones, Ira goes and talks to the sheriff, and Ty goes and talks to the other parents. So Ira's talking to the sheriff, doesn't really get much out of him, but there is a really freaking good joke that is so up my alley I just had to share. I love this guy. Sheriff, favourite character. You see, this kind of stuff doesn't really happen in Sugar Hill, he says, taking a small puff from his pipe. So I've heard Mr. Roy. Mr. Greg Roy. Miss? Ira holds out her hand. Ira Lewis. After they shake, she tries to rub the sweat off his hand. I think this is meant to say she tried to rub his sweat off her hand, but it's written like she's rubbing his sweat off his hand, and that just makes me laugh. That isn't the joke, by the way. I forgot that was actually here when I started typing this quote. You know, when I was a boy, they would call me Greg Roy. It was one of those play on words, because it sounded like my full first name, Gregory. The joke. The way he went on to explain it, masterclass. This is my favourite character, hands down. I love him and I would die for him. Anyway, Ira learns that the town has a mental institution, which houses 3. This is relevant to my complaints. 3 patients, one of which is called Crazy Benji. Like, the poor boy had no hope. These people are monsters. First we've got Chubby Charlie and now Crazy Benji. Like, these are the real villains of this story. I feel so bad for these people. She learns that the kids were taken on the way home from school and that the school bus driver was the last to see them. This part of the story sort of tries to throw suspicion around on a few characters. Personally, I don't really think it succeeds all that well, but the effort is there. You know, I appreciate that. It just sort of feels a bit rushed, you know, because it sort of feels like they're trying to insert a whole new story into the one they've already got going. And mind you, this is already a very short story to begin with. And I don't know, it just doesn't really go anywhere. Like, you put suspicion on these people, reveal the culprit, and leave their shady actions/reactions unexplained. You know, like I said, I liked the effort. It was fun in the moment, but once it was over, I kind of just forgot about it, especially since it's never actually explained why she stole the girls. You know, but we'll talk a bit more about that. So Ira's with the sheriff. Ty then meets the other families at the diner and finds out that they were all taken on Monday when the mothers were all at a meeting. They sort of place some more suspicion on people, and then the girls will kind of meet up again and plan to do it all tomorrow. Morning! Guess what time it is? Breakfast! They all go around and talk to some more people, add some more suspicion to the citizens of Sugar Hill. Ty ends up going to Sugar Hill Asylum, where she meets Benji and a doctor, Dr. Prisha Langhari. They sort of have a little talk, and she notices some scratch marks at the bottom of the kitchen door. This is explained as being from a dog from one of the other patients' family members. But then later someone says only Benji lives there. You know, what happened to the other 2 patients that the sheriff mentioned? And then he has no family, so where did the scratches come from? Because the girls are found in another room. Sorry, spoilers. Dr. Langhari here ends up being the villain. But yeah, the girls are found in another room. So does that mean they were also locked up in the kitchen? But then why would they scratch at the door? They were in a kitchen with like utensils and hot water. So then also, why did the doctor lock them in there? Because that seems kind of dangerous. I don't know, it just doesn't really make sense. I don't think scratches were the best way to try and show something amiss. And like I said, they don't really get explained. Like, where did the scratches come from? Sorry, I kind of revealed what happened. But anyway, let's just move on. Forget what I said. Mystical, psychic screen, swirly window. What? It's the next day, and the girls decide that the missing children isn't important enough to be concerned about. Obviously, it was second on the list. So they decide to do more things off the list. So they have to get rid of some ghosts at a graveyard, make it rain, and then do something about this supposed fox problem. So they kind of decide, why not do it all at once? So Ty and Ira tackle the ghost situation. Nez brings on the storm, since she's got the energy power, and Ez is left to go after the foxes. This sequence is kind of weird. During Ira and Ty's battle with the ghosts, Ira falls down into an open grave and Ty is shown where she is by some mysterious figure. Who this figure is, we don't find out. It's never questioned again. Ez has like a really wild time though. Ez comes across a large fox leaving a small den. She locks eyes with it, taking a deep breath as she raises her hand. Silently apologizing, she fires at the animal. When the flames hit, there is a scream. It startles Ez, stopping her flames immediately. She glances around frantically, trying to find the source of the sound. Finally, she settles back on the fox. It's on the ground, crying as a human would. Taking a few steps towards the creature, she hears the first few drops of rain hit the highest leaves. She looks up briefly, and when she tries to find the fox again, it's gone. In its place lies a woman. The girls all meet up again where Ez is standing with a horde of humans that were once foxes. They come to the conclusion that they don't think that they're the Toktas, the people that can shapeshift, as they don't normally only shift in rain or forget that they're human. But it's never really explained what they actually are. I don't know. They decide to use a Tok to try and talk to them, but the book Ira brought with all the Toks in it got ruined by the rain, so she doesn't know what to do. So she starts to sort of freak out, and Nez kind of has to reassure her. Do you know how these books were written? Ira looks at Nez, shaking her head. People make up Toks. No one's done it for a long time now, but it's not like they can be found somewhere. People, through trial and error or intuition, we don't exactly know. People like you decided what symbol did what. They noted it down, put it in a book, and that became the convention. So basically just saying people did some science and recorded their findings. So with Ira's knowledge of the ancient language and some intuition, I don't know, she draws the Tok needed on the fox woman's skin. When she draws the symbol onto her skin, it's more complicated than anything she's ever used before. She digs the stake harder, the woman's skin turning a shade of red wherever it touches. Her lips move, muttering something wordlessly to herself. When she finishes, she looks back up at the woman. Can you understand me? She makes a few sounds low in her throat, but Ira hears her voice in her head. Yes. So Ira learned that she can make up Toks. We don't use that again in this book. So now that they can communicate and get them to leave. I think that's what they do. Their interaction kind of goes bad and the girls end up fleeing, but it's never brought up again. So assuming the foxes don't stay around to enact a revenge. So yeah, like I said, that whole interaction, very weird. Doesn't really add anything to the main plot. Doesn't really get explained again. Ira does, some cool making up of a new Tok, but then, like I said, she doesn't make up another Tok throughout the entire book. She just finds new books with other Toks written down in it and then just uses those. So I don't know. It was so cool. Like, it was such a cool concept to just kind of ignore it. And then what happened with the foxes? That never got explained. Like, that was weird. That was weird, right? Like, I feel like that should have been important. And maybe it will be important in another book, but yeah, for it to just happen and never get addressed again. I don't know. Alright, next day, we are back at breakfast. Ty says something wild. We're waiting until Monday to keep going with the kids, right? Yes. Let's wait till another child gets kidnapped. Honestly, it's a good thing Sandy gives them a call. Nez, I reached you. My lord, thank the heavens. What is it? Sandy's voice was more frantic than usual, her words strung together with barely enough space to be comprehensible. Was another girl taken? Yes. Well, no, it wasn't a girl this time. It was a boy, Owen. We're all in the diner right now, having a town meeting. So the girls pack up, meet the crew at the diner, and they start talking to the sheriff. Where was he taken? Between school and home. He walks to school. If we could get a map, could you point out his route? Nez asks. We can ask the people whose houses he passes by if they saw him. He shows the path Owen would have taken on Ira's phone. He goes by the asylum? Ty asks. Eyebrows furrowed. Old Greg nods. I guess he does. Is that important? Who is Crazy Benji related to? Ty asks. Do they have any dogs? I don't know if they did, but his folks are long gone now. He was the only child too. Don't think he's got any family left. Ty and Ira look at each other. Who else is in the asylum? Nez asks. Old Greg. Old Greg's the sheriff. I should have mentioned that. Shakes his head. Just him. That's why we haven't had a doc working for a while. Just Pam, who goes in and checks on him. One. Liar? Like I said earlier, he said there were 3 people in the asylum. Now he's changing his... Old Greg, I think we need to take you to the asylum. 2. I still can't believe they just let this guy live in an asylum without medical attention. Benji is the real victim here. Pam? What are you talking about? Don't you mean Dr. Langhari? Ty asks, her words more forceful than before. I've never heard of that woman in my life. So this is when Ty realises that Dr. Langhari is behind the kidnappings. So the group of girls all dash down to the asylum to catch Dr. Langhari, standing surrounded by 20 figures in black cloaks. I don't know if they were like in the middle of a ritual or they were waiting to attack the girls, like they knew they were coming. What are they doing? They're about to put on like a show for Benji. What do you think they're going to do? Like the Nutcracker? Swan Lake. Nez realizes that she recognizes 2 of the cloaked figures, Sam and Ming, as both people that she knew back in Crann. She sort of pushes Dr. Langhari aside and uses her powers to ask them what they want. They tell her that they're the Adder and that they come from a mystical place called Azuru, and they have taken over people's bodies, use their bodies to do their terrible thing. Nez ends up reaching out and grabbing at Sam, which then causes them both to collapse and lose consciousness. And then the Adder just fade backwards into the shadows of the room, kind of just leaving Dr. Langhari covered in tears and blood from when Nez pushed her earlier. I don't really get this interaction. I feel like we're building up to something, and for nothing to really happen, for them to not even fight back, kind of feels a little strange. Like their whole mission was to stop Ira from returning to Crann, and then she was just standing right in front of them. Like, why didn't they try to take her, kill her? This all could just be me not understanding, but, I mean, people love watching idiots make fools of themselves. They capture the doctor and they find the girls and Owen locked up in the rooms. Owen reveals that his mother was actually the one who gave him up to the doctor because he has that water ability. Turns out all of the parents actually gave up their children to the doctor. 2 points here. 1. Why make the point of Owen walking past the asylum when really he wasn't taken off the street? He was given up by his parents, I'm assuming at his house. So it really wasn't, it was really just a coincidence that he walks past there and not a clue. Like, I'm glad it worked out. And 2, how did the parents give up the children when they disappeared on the Monday after being seen by the bus driver? But all the parents were either at that meeting or working. No, actually, I mean, they probably just lied saying they never made it home when they did. Okay, you can have that one. But 3, these parents let their daughters be missing for weeks and knew where they were and lied this whole time. And it's not addressed. Literally, the book just says, Ira spoke to the other parents who, after some convincing, admitted they gave up their children too. They told a similar story to Owen's. Dr. Langhari showed up at their door, and for some reason they were compelled to hand over their children. So they knew? It's not like the memory was erased and now suddenly the trance had been broken. It's not written like that. It's written like they actively knew what they did was wrong and tried to hide it. Like, I understand not wanting to admit they gave up their children, but they could try and push the sheriff in the right direction, like with an anonymous tip or something. These people are monsters. Owen asks the girls if he can stay with them and go back to Crann, to somewhere he will fit in. And they agree and kidnap this child. Like, he's 10, guys. Come on. Oh, but don't worry about his parents worrying, though. Ty convinces the sheriff that he must have drowned trying to escape. As kids do, just die. Don't have to worry about them anymore, thank God. Off to Hawaii. On their car ride back to the safe house, Ira comes back out with some more brilliant questions. Honestly, Ira has some really good questions that I really, really wish would just be answered. Jesus. So they're sort of discussing about how much training and learning and trial and error that went into them all learning about their powers, to try and make Ira feel a bit better about not really knowing everything about her power. How long did it take you guys to learn? How long does it normally take people to learn these kinds of things? Is there a school for it? Do your specific powers run in families? What happens when a Lewis gets with a Struth? Does that kid have fire and water? Can people have more than one ability? Where even is Crann? Is it in the United Kingdom somewhere? But then this new book is in Proto-Indo-European, and I'm pretty sure the adder was speaking something completely different. Also, is adder plural or singular? Or excellent questions. I mean, I think some of these have actually already been answered, but that's cool. Information overload. You can't be expected to know everything. But yes, let's start to get a few more answers. Oh, wait, let me finish that quote. I did, cut off. Ira, Ty cuts in. If you don't shut up, I will crash this car. End of chapter. Should have known. Baited again. It's the next day, and surprisingly, they're not having breakfast. Is it the next day? Maybe it's not. I keep telling myself to stop assuming things, but I never learn. We find out they've brought the doctor and Sam back to the safe house and have them tied up in the rooms. We change it up a bit and get a Dr. Langhari, POV. She wakes up with a bag over her head and has a bit of a spiral session. It's okay, babe, happens to the best of us. Who are they? The same people who paid me to kidnap the boy? Or are they the sheriff's people? Have I been caught? Is this what happens to prisoners? After 20 minutes of going down this path, her only company is her mind. Her thoughts shift. Should I try to escape? Or would it be better to plead innocent? They must have found the girls, whoever they are. If only I can get this stupid bag off. As we know, the Adder are people of Crann, people with abilities, so this evil organisation kidnaps these people with special abilities to turn them into these beings. So yeah, I understand why Owen was kidnapped, being, that he's one of these magical beings. But why the girls? Are they also magical beings? Because that was never mentioned. I'm just so confused. And I don't like being confused, but she tries to escape, but ends up creating a lot of noise, which ends up alerting Owen. He comes in and she manipulates him. He's only 10. Give the guy a break. She manipulates him into releasing her because she decided, to go down the pleading innocent route. Luckily, the girls arrive before he can untie all of her bounds, but not before, waking up Nez and revealing some backstory on Sam. Turns out he's been missing, presumed dead for 2 years, and was actually going to be considered to be one of the 9 Supreme prior to his disappearance. So the girls arrive at the doctor's room and Owen pleads her innocence. Owen, what are you doing? Ez calls, rushing over. She was being controlled by those people, he answers. She doesn't even remember doing any of it. She shouldn't be locked up like an animal. Ty turns to Dr. Langhari, her eyes burning with hatred. Kidnapping him wasn't enough. You had to manipulate him too. I didn't do anything, I swear. It was all those people in the cloaks. You really expect us to believe? Ty starts. You tell her, Ty. That manipulating piece of... Sorry, what? They believe her? And release her the next day with that much fuss? Oh, okay. At least they do put this tracking device on her, but again, I don't understand how that works. So, fingers crossed it does. They turn their attention to Sam after, talking to the doc. And Ira uses a talk that allows Nez and Sam to communicate telepathically, since he can't seem to speak yet. Sam, it's really you? It is. You shouldn't have touched me. She pauses, listening for a moment before responding. Why not? In exchange for me becoming myself again, you've lost your ability. But it's only temporary. Turns out when a magic person touches an adder, the person they were inhabiting returns to themselves, but unfortunately also saps the magic person of their magic. Sam sort of knows this because the adder has actually done this before, I think, in attempts to create something called a tes, which is like a bond between an atom. someone who was once a part of the Adder but then somehow removed themselves, and an Amar, which the book describes as everybody else. So I'm assuming just someone who was never a part of the Adder. I'm not too sure if it means the person who got them out of the Adder, just some random person. A few days go by and they're training and Sam's getting better, and like, we're talking a couple of days, okay? This and this book is like, Sam was finally beginning to speak again. He began to pull his weight, helping with cleaning and research. Dude just came back from the dead. Give the man a break. Pulling his weight, my God. Who needs enemies with these people? So rude. Finally, they decide to get back on track and try to get home. They start planning how to attack the Adder and get the clock back. We need to figure out where their base is. I'm assuming that's where they're keeping the clocks. Ez cuts herself off, eyeing Sam. You wouldn't happen to know any information, would you? He takes a deep breath. I don't remember exactly where it was. The way we shared information was different, so things are a little blurry. But I know it was here, close by. When you say close by, do you mean within 100 yards or more like within the country? He smiles at her. Within the state, if I had to guess. We knew you were coming to get the Takaias. You three were our biggest threat, but we couldn't push our attack date back. If you had a Takaias, you could just make another clock. This way, you're stuck. But they have the Takaias. They have Ira. So why couldn't they just make another clock? You knew we were coming? How? Nez asks. I don't know, but there's someone working on the inside. We knew that Crann was sending out the sends. This was our last chance. He pauses, looking at Ez. We couldn't let you have the Takaias. They're too strong. We were planning on eliminating her before she received her training. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. That was a really good plan. However, it's just a small problem. When have they actually really attacked the girls? Like, there was that little scuffle back at the pedestal, but they didn't really put up that much of an effort, let's be real. Then they kind of sulked around Sugar Plum Palace, stealing little children, not once trying to go after Ira when she was gallivanting around the town. And even when they had that confrontation at the asylum, like, where was the trying to eliminate Ira? They just kind of floated around and then faded into the background. None of their interactions screamed them trying to kill her. And again, I think we need to address that line that is said that she could have just created a Glock herself, but that's never discussed again. And they just go and attack the Adder to steal back the clock when this option was here all along. Like, am I missing something? They plan their attack on the Adder and decide to use invisibility tox. They make their way to the hideout, which is conveniently close by, and there is a throw-off line stating, though they had invisibility tox, they still make noise as they walk. Okay, but like, couldn't you have just made them all fly? Like, I don't understand what the limitations to this thing is. So, without limitations, the possibilities are endless. I don't say it's because they can't have more than 2 tox, because they also have heightened sight and hearing as well right now with no side effects. Though later on she does say having more than 2 enhanced sense abilities causes a nosebleed that she can't heal. But then why do tox that enhance the senses have limitations, but the others don't seem to have limitations? At least you don't mention any. Finally, Ira wisens up and gives Ez and Ty the flying toque, which they use to fly up to the Adder's hideout and sort of peer through the window. What do you see? Sam responds. Ty sighs. All of the clocks. And other things too. What other things? Wouldn't you like to know? I also would like to know, so if you do actually find out, could you please tell me? Should we try for them all or only ours? Why does it matter which one they grab? Does only the country's clock work in the country? How are they indistinguishable from the others? If we get out, we can go back to Crann for reinforcements, Nez says. What, and let the mole know what we're doing? Ira asks. We should end this here. They don't know how many of us there are. You guys are sens, aren't you? If anyone can take down a group of dims, this would be the time to do it, Sam says. I agree with Ira. Take them all. So they take them all, greedy bastards. Now, I don't know about you, but I was so ready for an epic long battle sequence. You know, this is like the defining moment when the good battles with the bad. I'm talking the pinnacle, the height, you know, whatever you call that in writing terms. Like I was ready for the climax. I thought this was the climax, honestly. I think it still might be the climax. It was like a little disappointing, a little flat. I'm not even joking. Okay, I am a little bit exaggerating, but I feel like I'm not exaggerating that much. You know, from the time they get caught to the time that they escape, it's not even one page, like one Kindle page. Let me read it for you. Sam notices a dim about to open the door to the room they were in. Hurry. That's literally how it's written. It's just hurry with a full stop, no exclamation mark. Don't come for me. Though they speed up, it's not enough. Ty freezes with one of the stones in her hand, but the person in front of her can see her, so the invisibility talk doesn't last very long. Good to know. He locks eyes with her, using the same form of psychic screaming to hurt her. I don't think I mentioned it, but the adder can do psychic screaming to hurt people. Gritting her teeth, Ty doesn't make a sound. From above, Ez shoots down a steady stream of fire. The flames don't outright kill the dim, but they shock him. He turns upwards to face Ez, giving Ty enough time to gather the remaining stones and fly out of there. We could use some lightning, Ty calls, landing next to Nez. As soon as she does, all of the dims around them turn to face her. Sam doesn't hesitate, lighting up the path between him and the few other dims. I'm assuming this is a talk, since Sam has the ability to control air, not energy, but I don't remember it saying Ira gave him this ability, and also Sam doesn't have his ability at the moment because he's still recovering from the adder thing. I'm nitpicking, I'm sorry. Ty and Nez both engage in a more physical fight, glad they thought to cover any exposed skin instead of risking having their powers drained. The fight is a mess of explosions and screams as the two sides do what they can against each other. Iris stands on the sidelines waiting for someone to get hurt enough to need a talk. It only happens twice, both times to Ty. Once the adder that pose an immediate threat are taken out, the five of them make their way back to Carrion Cove. 265 words. And I was being generous there, I think. They regroup. Ira starts healing them. She tells them that they can't use the clock yet because of their states. More stalling. They sleep and the next day decide to weed out the mole. What if we lure the mole out? Ira asks. Like find a way to get a message to them that would make them come to us. Then we trap them here. We use the clock and take it with us. And then the mole is stuck in Carrion Cove. Wait, how can you take the clock with you? And like what, just leave the country without a clock? But also, how do they get from Crann to Earth? Do they have clocks over there? Even if it was the Ree, that way we wouldn't have to kill her or anything. She could be detained for questioning, as says, because they're querying whether it was the Ree. That's the mole. And if we still found that they were getting information, we'd know it either wasn't the person we got or there were multiple, Ty adds. That's actually a really good plan. I mean, if the plan doesn't actually catch the mole, which you said maybe it wouldn't, is it really that good of a plan? What kind of message would work though, Nez asks. What would possibly make them come all the way here and give up the position they have in Crann? We have a code system, Sam says, though I don't know how we could convince the mole it's coming from Ada. If we could get the word "gee" in there. What if we get on the phone with Crann, tell them we're surrounded and held hostage by the adder, and then give them the message, Ira asks. If the mole really can know everything else, they'll hear about this. Then we tell them the clock is dropped off a cliff or something, somewhere where it'd be useless. Sam also tells them to use the word canoe, K-A-N-U, in their message, so the mole will trust that the clock is where the adder wanted it to be. They agree on the plan and decide to do it tomorrow. You know, it's not like any of us have anywhere to be. So tomorrow comes, no breakfast, mind you. Bit disappointed there. You know, I thought we had something, but now you're just ghosting me. It's cool, I'm cool. Nez calls and Joe, one of the 9, picks up. The adder are surrounding us, Nez says. They keep torturing us with their minds. They told us they won't stop until we send you a message. Green, indigo, kangaroo, anteater, nightingale, unicorn. So obviously, this spells out G and canoe, the two things Sam told them to include in the message. Obviously. I totally knew that the first and the second time I read through this and didn't just pick up on that when I was writing the script. Because, only an idiot wouldn't catch that and try and decipher what Gikanu meant. Like the other were really into some weird anime, I'd never heard of. Is what I may have thought if I was an idiot, but I'm not, obviously. Anyway, with the bait planted, they wait for their mole. A low hum fills the room. Ira and Ty moving closer to the wall while Nez begins to tug on her ropes. So they tied Nez up. I'm not really sure why, because she's the only one they tied up, and why would they need to continue their charade when the mole comes? It's not like they do anyway, so why? In the middle of the room where they'd left the clock, a bright light flashes. Once the girls are able to see clearly again, a boy roughly the same age is left. Nez immediately stops struggling, her jaw going slack. Nick? Ty calls, moving closer to the centre. What do you mean, what are you? It's a trap. A second low hum begins. Thinking quickly, Ty pulls him to the side until the light dies down again. Another boy stands in the middle of the room. It's Nick who calls to him, confusion filling his voice. Ick? Who is the mole? Eeny, meeny, miny, mole. Bet there's a whole scene where the girls have to use their smarts and wits. Look, I'm sorry, I should stop. One of you is the mole. A mole? Nick asks. For who? The adder, Sam says, not taking his eyes off Ick, who turns to face him. You're dead. I'm not. They said... Nez frowns, taking a step closer to Ick. Who said? He doesn't take his eyes off of Sam, his face impassive. Congratulations, Prim. You found the one leaking information. The one helping the adder. I mean, everybody thought he was dead, didn't they? So why was him saying, they said he was dead, a telltale sign that he was the mole? I just feel like it's an easy out, you don't have to write a complicated scene. And then, to make things worse, they really easily convince him to switch sides again, to come back to their side and double cross the adder, because, they'd never know. So Sam and Ick kind of get a moment alone together, young love. And they kind of have a chat about Sam going missing. What did they say about me back home? They weren't really sure what happened. The official verdict was you went out to the woods for a run, slipped and died in the river. But you didn't believe that. I didn't believe much of anything for a little while. It just seemed so wrong that you would die from something so simple. And that's when the adder showed up. They told me they knew the truth about you. So, did they tell Ick that Sam was dead? Or did they say he wasn't to lure him in and then told him he was dead when he was, stuck as a mole? But he also said earlier in the initial interaction that my reward for following their instructions was joining you, to Sam. So did that mean in death? Or what? And then again, how did Ick saying they said you were dead give him away as a mole, since it was the official story in Crann? So the group kind of come back together and they chat and decide not to tell the people back at Crann about the adder because they're the adder's targets. They're going after the people of Crann to fill their ranks. Why we don't want to warn the people to safeguard them, is a choice. I understand maybe not wanting to cause panic, but the literal reason written in the book is the reason why we shouldn't tell people of Crann is because they are the targets. I don't know. I don't see that as a very good reason to withhold information. Anywho, they report back to Crann and tell them they'll be returning the following day. Ty gives Ira some gossip about the past, where she tells us how Sam used to get bullied and Nez beat up Nick. But, now they're all really close. But Ira butts in saying, knowing about who's with who isn't going to help me fit in. I'd rather learn about social customs and things like that. Ira, I am so with you. I am so ready to get to learning about this world you live in, you know? Come on, hit me with it, Ty. And it's the next day. Breakfast is ghosted again. And they all get ready to return to Crann. But wait a minute. Do you all remember earlier in the book when they needed to go to the pedestal and place the clock on the pedestal to create a portal back to Crann? Yeah, not anymore. Don't need that big rock no more. Now all we need to do is hold onto the clock, tap your heels 3 times, and suddenly we're back in Kansas. Hey babe, I think you dropped your law again. Oh, that was mean. That sounded really mean. I'm sorry. They arrive back to cheers and applause, quickly get introduced, and get whisked away to prepare for the ceremony of the anointing of the 27. We end up meeting a few more of the 27 members again. You know, what happened to the last ones. And we just sort of leave the book just before the ceremony starts, and the girls are quizzing Ira on what group they're going to choose. Now, I don't know, this may sound crazy, especially after you've just listened to me rant and rave for however long about this book, but I didn't actually mind it. I know it may be the Stockholm Syndrome. I have read it now 3 times back to back, but like it wasn't terrible. It was just kind of like unrefined. Like I think the story is interesting, the magic and the lore is cool, and there were a lot of moments of the group, you know, coming together and working out their differences. I think Ez got a little wasted, but throughout the book there are some good tension between Ty and Nez. I didn't really get into it. Like, yes, you know, there was some plot and some world building issues. Like, I really wish this was just like a first draft, not the published piece, because I think with some fine tuning, this could have been good. You know, I'm a little disappointed, but I'm not disheartened. So I will be looking out for the next book whenever that comes out, because this was just published in 2024, just very recently. So that was The Search for Crann.